Instant Rumor presents Chocolate Yoddah Live. Hi folks, Chocolate Yoddah here, spelled Y-O-D-D-A-H, because film studios are litigious. Today is Friday, July 14th, 2023. Welcome to another installment of Chocolate Yoddah Live. And once again, hello to the folks at Wisdom. Hello to the folks on Clubhouse. And of course, it would be nice if I unmuted my mic at Clubhouse so they could hear me. Hello, Clubhouse. I'll get this eventually. Or not, What does it matter, really? All right. So today is another week that has come to a close for the show. Anyway, I do this Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube Live, Wisdom, and Clubhouse. But what a week it's been, and Donnie Dump is slipping ever closer to the meat grinder that I believe will comprise the rest of his life. His legal troubles just keep getting worse. It's quite amazing, and I'm not going to spend any more time talking about it. I'm just enjoying the pageantry of it all. Oh, former White House squatter. Shame on you, sir. As if he has any. He definitely doesn't. So, all right, so far, it seems like all systems are go. From what I can tell, you can all hear me, you can all see me, and let's hope that continues. Today, what is on my mind is kind of a continuation of what I spoke about yesterday, about the life of men, and but because we touched on some things regarding women, and it got me thinking about marriage. Marriage. And every time I hear the word marriage in my head, I just can't help hearing the scene in The Princess Bride. And here is what he said, and I hope that I get the dialect at least close. Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. Marriage, that blessed arrangement, that dream within a dream, and love. True love will follow you forever. So treasure your love. Oh, I love that scene in The Princess Bride, but of course I love The Princess Bride from frame to frame, from the beginning to end. It's absolutely brilliant. One of my favorite films ever. And the name of that character is also funny. He is listed in the credits as Impressive Clergy. I love that. So I called this Like and Marriage because I have some questions. I have one question in particular for the ladies. So hopefully, A, some women are listening, and B, some women will be willing to participate. And I'll get to that question in a moment. But in looking at marriage, I'm kind of like what Bill Burr used to say before he got married. And it is funny to me that most comedians that make fun of marriage are themselves usually married, right? But Bill Burr, asked the question, why is anybody getting married anymore? Have you looked at the stats? And the stats are pretty compelling, actually. I looked up a whole bunch of statistics about marriage. I certainly won't bore you with all of them, but there were a couple that stood out to me. And I would say one in particular, because the one everybody cites, of course, is 50% of all marriages end in divorce. And colloquially, I've heard people discuss the idea that, your first marriage is your starter marriage. I mean, even calling it a first marriage is kind of cynical, right? Like, that indicates that we kind of know that there's a 50-50 shot that this ain't going to work out. And every time I'm at a wedding, which I haven't been for years and years, but in your 20s and 30s, you wind up going to a lot of weddings, right? And I always used to quietly think to myself, which side of the 50% equation are these folks going to spend all this money on falling into? So 50% of all marriages fail. I guess end in divorce. I don't know if that's necessarily a failure, but I am definitely biased in this because I initiated 2 divorces, which is, by the way, unusual. Most divorces, at least 70% of divorces, are initiated by women. And if a woman is college educated, that number jumps to 90%. So that's kind of interesting. I'm, I guess, one of the few men that not only initiated 1, but 2 divorces. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's also not something I'm ashamed of. And, I don't know if I feel shame or embarrassment, so that's not necessarily meaningful in my case, but, it is what it is, right? But here's the statistic that surprised me because of this belief that, your first marriage is your starter marriage and you're going to get it better the second time. Ain't necessarily so. If I recall correctly, second marriages, it was either 63 or 65% failure rate, and third marriages are way higher. That's 73%. 73, again, I might be jostling my numbers around, but it was like 73, 75%, something like that. But, the more times you get married, the less likely it is to last. Let's ask J-Lo. She would know. I'm betting that you can time her marriage to Ben Affleck, or is it a Fleck? I don't know, on an egg timer. But, I hope those 2 kids stay in love forever, or something better. We have a guest waiting already, and that's Greg from Greg's Take. And I know Greg's been married for over 2 decades now, so I'm definitely looking forward to hearing what he has to say. But yeah, have you looked at the stats? It doesn't make sense, and I wonder why. And maybe Greg and I can work out what the story is with marriage and why they don't always work out. So Greg from Greg's Take is going to come in and regale us with stories of love and light.
I was listening to you, and this song came to mind. It's never as good as the first time.
Oh, yeah. You can't go wrong with Sade, my friend. You can never go wrong with Sade.
Thank God she knows how to sing, and I know I certainly can't, but that's what popped into my head. It's funny, my wife and I's anniversary is tomorrow, 23 years.
Spectacular.
Yeah, been together 25. I think the prerequisite, I don't ever give marriage advice because that's not a good thing to do, but I think a prerequisite, if we were to say what would be something that would possibly increase our odds of staying married, and I don't mean to the same person forever, but longer, we'll just leave it at that, is fidelity. Let's just put that at the top of the list, shall we?
Yeah,
Fidelity.
that's a good place to start. I would start before that though, and ask: is marriage the only reasonable option between two people that are in a relationship?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but the institution of marriage, I don't fault anybody for it, for what it means to them, for how it makes them feel. It is literally a contract with the state. It's
Thank
about
you,
assets. So
thank you,
there.
thank you.
I kind of felt that vibe coming off of you.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's a quasi religious ceremony, but I have performed three marriages myself. Okay,
Cool.
and there, the last sentence that every clergy speaks in a marriage is, "By the power granted me by the state of."
Yeah.
Okay, it's a beautiful ceremony that's really about a contract, and it's really ultimately
Yep.
just a tax status, you
Yep.
know, and it gives
That's
you certain
exactly right.
rights which are cool, but it's like it. I think it would be so easy in law to create a contract that's not as onerous, that gives you some of the same rights, like visiting someone in the hospital who's dying. Like, what a ridiculous thing that if two men are together for 50 years, that because they don't have this goofy piece of paper, the one can't be by the other side on their deathbed. That's insanity.
Yeah, I have heard, and I don't know, that that's changing a bit in some states. It's yeah, that's sad. You know, COVID really showed us, for example,
Yeah.
just how ridiculous human beings can be when they think they're doing the right thing, and how dangerous it can be when it's taken to even close to the area of extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And yeah,
Yeah.
and the interesting thing to me is that marriage, the way it's defined by the law and the way people generally understand it, goes kind of counter to what we are as human beings, and certainly is not reflected in the earliest examples that anthropology gives us. It was not uncommon for a woman to have several different fathers of her children, you know? And it wasn't uncommon for polygamous relationships, you know, and Utah always makes me laugh, where they're like, listen, our state is a polygamous state, and we want statehood into America, and America said no, and they said, well, we'll give up polygamy.
Yeah, and practice it anyway after we get our
Yes,
statehood. We'll just keep it on the
yes,
down low.
right. Hey, Bruce
Yeah,
Hornsby said, because the law don't change another's mind, you know?
that's a good one, man.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll share a real life story with you. This is just yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. I got a lead from a seller in literally an hour away from where a lot of my family lives, down in the Delta, in Mississippi Delta, wanting to sell a house. So I reach out to them through the normal channels. Takes them a couple days to call me back. We get on the phone. I start going through the usuals, and very early on, I just needed a point of clarification, so I went a little off script, and this is basically what happened. They had a house, husband and wife, that they were living in, that they said that they owned. They probably said that 3 or 4 times. I said, that's fine. I said, I'm just looking at the owner of record versus the owner of record that you submitted, in their different names. And the gentleman said, well, that's my mother. She's on board with, whatever it is that I agree with, which is fine. That's acceptable. We get that often. Mom would be the one to sign the contract, of course. But here's what they did. This man's been divorced. He quit claimed his property rights to his mother to keep them away from his now ex-wife. So I
Hmm.
immediately knew not to go into that on the phone with them, because it scares people. They get worried. We let the attorney handle that. But depending on the state that it's in, right? He may not be able to sell that house,
Right.
right? Because I had a friend of mine call me up and say the same thing. He had a property in a couple states over from the West Coast, and he was asking me, could I quit claim it to you or another mutual friend of ours to keep it out of my wife's hands? I said, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I said, you can do whatever you want. You can quit claim to anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
I said, but you better be willing to stand in front of the judge and explain why you're depriving your wife of her legal right to her marital asset. Oh, I'm not worried about that liberal bitch. I can handle her at the bench. I said, well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. So, it's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's another wonderful example of the sanctity of marriage, right? I hear that phrase so often. It's the sanctity of marriage, and marriage is the cornerstone of American society. And I'll tell you what, Greg, I have two ideas about that. Number one, how can something be sanctimonious or sacred rather, if you can get it done at a drive-through by an Elvis impersonator? Okay.
I'm getting ready to spout an opinion. Okay, here it comes. The cornerstone of this country, called the United States of America, is muskets and cannons. That's the cornerstone of this country.
Right. And
I'm not saying that what you're saying is incorrect. But
and no, I'm not saying that marriage is the cornerstone of society. I'm saying that's what I hear people say, right? And so yes, and by the way, that's. You raise a point that I might talk about at a later date, which is, why is Canada, with actually more guns per capita than America, so peaceful and America so violent? Could it be that Canada was born by decree and America was born in violence?
Yeah, and I'm being silly here, it's so damn cold up there, the violence just kind of stays in check.
It's too cold to fight, man. It's too cold to fight. But yeah, it's just kind of like this idea of a cornerstone, like, because that's a metaphor, right? Because the cornerstone of a building is the thing that keeps that building from collapsing. So if you're saying marriage is the thing that keeps America from collapsing, then with a 50% failure rate, would you ever step into a building if it was a 50-50 chance that it would collapse?
I'm telling you, and I love the same analogy. Would you skydive if they told you half the people that jump out of this plane die because the chute doesn't open? No thanks. I'm not getting in that plane.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have to think about that at all.
Oh no, they're lining up 50 deep to take classes to jump out of that plane. You've mentioned him before. Bill Burr gives us such a great treatment. He's so damn funny about this whole thing.
Yeah.
The equal treatment and the marriage and all that good stuff. Yeah.
No, well, Billy Burr is he's one of the best. He's people talk about Chappelle, and of course I would never disagree. I think Chappelle is the greatest of all time. However, Bill Burr is really the same. It's just the form is different, but the function is the same. They're both very philosophical in their comedy. Yeah.
It some of the funniest stuff I ever saw, my brother introduced me to. I think it was Chappelle's skit on that show that he had.
Oh.
Where there was a blind black guy that thought he was a white racist. That shit was so damn funny.
Not only is that absolutely genius, I believe it was the second sketch of the first show of the first season. So he wasted no time in getting to that. For my money, for what it's worth, that's the greatest skit in the history of history. Okay.
Seriously, I mean, if you come out guns blazing. And my brother Eric was born and raised in the Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
I mean, he laughed till tears just come out of his eyes. And his son-in-law happens to be a man of color, sitting right there on the couch laughing with us too. I mean, it's just hilarious. It's so funny.
And here's the second thing about that skit is that it's based on Dave Chappelle's real family life. He had an uncle who was blind and didn't know he was black because of it. Because they sent him to the only school for blind people in the area, and it was only white people in that school. So that's the foundation of that absolutely brilliant skit. My son and I, to this day, quote that skit.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
It's so damn. And you and I were yucking it up the other day about Raising Arizona. That's the best film Nicolas Cage has ever been in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
seriously.
I think it's a tie between that and Moonstruck.
You know what? I don't think I've ever watched Moonstruck.
Oh, if you like Nicolas Cage in Raising Arizona, I would say that is your best bet. To check out
Oh
Moonstruck.
man.
I count Moonstruck among my the films in my mind that are perfect films.
Yeah.
I believe that there is not one word in that entire film that you could change to improve it, and it might be to its detriment if you chose to do that. And Cher was magical in it, and she gave us precious few films, but I think she was good in pretty much every one of them. But that was her best performance. That was Nick Cage's one. I would say again tied with Raising Arizona as far as his best performances go.
Oh man, when he came out of that damn convenience store with the Huggies underneath his arm, and he's running down the street, and that old man stops to pick him up and says, "Boy, you got a panty on your head." Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Yeah, there's honestly there's just 500 things that are funny about Raising Arizona, and
just 500.
Yeah, and it's
I read
just
the backstory.
It's one of those films that, like, you know, you have to watch it, I would say, at least 3 times because you've missed parts that you were laughing over.
Yeah, and there's the narration, then there's what's going on. I'm sure you've seen this. It was the backstory of the script. I didn't know it until recently that the part that Holly Hunter played, they wrote the script to match her acting ability, her personality, and all that. So that just made it, you know. And then you see her in a movie called The Piano, which is a completely different film.
Yeah.
That was a completely different film.
Yeah, Harvey Keitel getting naked once again.
What a hey, as long as he got paid, right?
Yeah, but who's going to help me? I can't unsee that.
You're right. I wasn't thinking of it that way, but you're right. Listen, I'm going to get off of here. Thank you so much for letting me come in here and hang out with you, man.
Always, Greg. You're the best. Thank you so much, sir.
You as well. Take care.
All right, ladies, it's on you. Ladies of wisdom. Let's see. We got a few more people that came on. Zen Master, Daily Shift, T Solo, Terry, Kim Alt, Brother Prater, Christina Lossi or Losi. I'm not sure. Sorry, Christina. A Western Philosophy, Cecilia Grace, and Marcy Ann. Come on, ladies. I got a question for the ladies, and hopefully one of you will come on and answer it. And it is in the realm of the like and marriage idea. Notice I didn't say love and marriage, right? I said like and marriage. And here's why. Here's the scenario, ladies. I want one of you to come on and answer. If you don't, then pooey on you. Okay, the scenario is, I like you. You love me. Is that okay? Your knee-jerk reaction is probably no, because that's usually what it is when I ask a woman that question. But tell me why. Tell me why you love me, I like you, and that's not okay with you. Come on, be brave, come forward, and if not, I'll tell you about the ideas that other women have shared with me. I'm just realizing now that Club Deck probably can't hear when someone on Wisdom asks a question. That's kind of interesting. So I'll probably say goodbye to them shortly if anyone comes on. But it looks like there's no takers to that question. So I will tell you, generally speaking, when I have asked a woman that question, her immediate reaction was no. I can't love him and he only likes me. And the reason I stress the word only is because I didn't say only when I asked the question. I said, you love him and he likes you. Why are you now saying he only likes me? What is that about? That's dismissing the idea that liking you is valuable, isn't it? Like, why wouldn't you be okay with him liking you? And here's I guess a sort of amalgamation of answers that I've gotten. Oh, it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be fair. It's not balanced. I love him. I'm giving him so much with my love. I'm giving him my energy. It's not right that he just likes me. And I'm telling you, that is that mashup of answers is everything I've ever gotten when I've asked this question of women. And I've asked many, many, many times, dozens and dozens of times. Because I've had these relationship conversations with people a lot, and hundreds of women easily. So here's what I find interesting about that answer. He can't just love me because I'm giving him so much by loving him. But are you, though? What do you mean? What are you giving him? He gave you something. If you love him, that is a feeling that he gave you. He treated you right. He has sex with you the way that you like and possibly love. You feel good about yourself in relation to him. That's, I believe, what a relationship is. How do I feel about myself in relation to another person? So this guy has given you all that. You've given him nothing yet, but he's sticking around. He's working. He's putting in the effort to create that feeling in you because he likes you. So it sounds like is a good thing. Why would you dismiss it? You know, and again, this is part of the issue with marriage, right? It creates this dynamic that's artificial. Like everybody has to be on the same page 24 hours a day and da-da-da-da-da, and act contrary to our nature. We are polygamous by design. We had to be because that ensured our survival. Everybody needs to bang everybody else so the species grows. And of course, we're not in that kind of dire need anymore since the second ice age, where there were only between 2,000 and 8,000 people left. We've bounced back quite nicely, and now there's roughly 8 billion of us. All right, so, but polygamy is still in our DNA. And of course, we can choose to be monogamous, and that's fine. That's a choice that everyone is free to make. But of course, it's not the only option, and marriage creates that as the only option. And how, as Greg started off talking about, if you're not faithful, if you engage in infidelity, as Greg worded it, then there's a problem, and automatically everything has to blow up. Or, and this is going to probably annoy some women, because, hey, you know, we know for a fact that women stay. It's not automatic that a woman's going to leave you if you are not faithful. But maybe the women that choose to stay kind of say to themselves, well, what did he do really? And I'm not saying this is absolutely true, but it is worthy of examination, right? What did he do really? He snuck out of his own dwelling to find happiness with another woman that I wasn't providing for him. Right? Happy wife, happy life, right? That saying means that the man is responsible for bringing the woman happiness, and nowhere in that statement is the man's happiness accounted for. And we know in America, we don't care about men's happiness. There's no one that can debate me on that. We simply don't care. We don't care what happens to men. We don't care about men. They are secondary. They are incidental. And so, in my opinion, if I'm responsible for your happiness, you are responsible for mine. Which I don't really believe. I take full responsibility for my own happiness. That's why I've been divorced twice. And I love my second ex-wife. She is and always will be the love of my life, but I don't like her enough to live with her. You see the difference in like and love for men? It ain't the same as it is for women. And Greg is back. All right, I love it. The only thing better then talking to Greg from Greg's Take is talking to Greg from Greg's Take twice. Fire away, my friend.
This just came to me. The sentiment of men being idiots who can't even decide what color tie to wear. I didn't realize it as a young person. It's been in Hollywood for a very, very long time. Al Bundy is a prime example. The Simpsons is a prime example. But we have to ask ourselves a question: why is that garbage so appealing to people? I'm not saying that it doesn't have some humor in there, but it leads me to this point. If you think you're supposed to be this subservient, blubbering, zero IQ idiot to your wife because that's what society demands of you, continue to cow to your wife's needs. She will not respect you naturally. That's all I have to say about that.
100%. Let me build on that. Jack Nicholson, one of the greatest actors, possibly the greatest male actor in history, he said, I believe it was in right around 85. I kind of remember it's the year my son was born. There was a GQ article that interviewed him. And he said the following, and I believe I'm remembering it word for word because it was emblazoned into my mind when I read it. He said, the degree to which a woman breaks a man is the degree to which she will lose respect for him. So why is it so popular in Hollywood? Because I think it's a fight the power kind of thing. It's men rule the world. At the end of the day, you can call us simple if you want to, but you know what we do after being simple? We build the fucking world. We invent almost everything that you use. We fight all the wars. We put out all the fires. We police all of the cities. That's what we do with our dumb, simple asses.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. Coach Greg on YouTube, I've mentioned him before. He gave some sort of a talk in Vegas, I think it was, probably like a main event thing that he does. And the camera was just on him, so he was giving like a lecture and then he took questions. He did a really good slideshow up on the white screen, if you will. And it was looked like a cartoon, maybe a video game picture of a barbarian at the gate. And he was driving home the point, ladies, and all you hardcore liberals, and I'm not using that as a blanket term. He meant true liberalism, the feminism, rise to power, and all that mess that I talked about the other day. Mm-hmm. He said, when this man breaks through the gates of the city, he does not care what you think about him or anything else in the world. And if you think for 1 second that he will not rape you and kill your husband, if your husband's not willing or able to defend you, you need to think twice. And he was trying to drive home the importance of the point of this destructive thinking that feminism has rooted in this country. And again, it's not about equality, it's about power. But all that aside, I think if a woman we've heard this, when I was a young man, I would hear this, why does she like the bad boy? We called it the bad boy syndrome. It's because she wants to see testosterone in action occasionally. Yep. She doesn't want a milquetoast, wimpy, latte-drinking pussy in her house, okay? And there's no other way to say that, right? It doesn't matter if she says she doesn't want that. She may be saying that, and I'm not saying that I can read women's minds and that I understand every single woman on the planet. That's not who I am. I never have been that person. Yeah. But I do know, as a young man reflecting on my life, I was far too afraid to step up and do simple things like be rejected 90 times to get 10 yeses. I didn't have the balls for that. Yeah. Because I was scared. And the dating that I did do in high school, I didn't date ugly women. They were nice looking. They might not have been the prom queen, but I'm not complaining one bit. Yeah. You know? They're in their DNA is the need to be protected. It's about genetics and muscle mass and testosterone. Exactly. Thank you, God, for those things.
Yes, yeah. And that is exactly what I was referring to up front when I said that this whole thing is a who versus what paradigm. who we are is all the goofy rules of society, all the goofy rules about belief in the invisible man in the sky, which, have at it if you want to, but that's who we are. What we are is what you just described, the hardwiring in our DNA that tells a woman, hey, that knuckle dragon dude over there, he's going to make some strong babies.
Yep, that's right. That's really what it's all about in the end. And well, Greg, we have the comforts of society and civilization and technology. I understand that. But over time, unless the architect of the universe changes the genetic code of how we show up, these things that Chocolate Yoddah and I are talking about are not going away. The X and the Y chromosome, the testosterone, all of it, it's the base. It's the groundwork, it's the cornerstone, if you will, of human beings. And what we're doing with all of this political nonsense, ridiculousness, and empty thinking that we call high intellect is we are secretly trying to defy the architect of the universe.
Yes.
It's impossible.
Thank you for using the metaphors of cornerstone and architect, because now we have a new paradigm for this metaphor. Because if, as you say, and I agree, that maleness is the cornerstone of the world, why would you want to remove that cornerstone? Because then wouldn't the world collapse? Sorry, ladies, but very few of you have invented anything. That's just a fact. And I'm not criticizing you. I'm stating a fact. Very few women have invented anything. It's mostly men who have invented things. It's mostly men who build things. And look, I love the fact that women do what they do. They have a role that is equally as important as the role that men have. The problem comes when you decide that men are garbage and we shouldn't be how we are. No one is telling you to stop being what you are and how you are. Hey, be what you are. Let us be what we are. And you know what? You don't really have a choice. No one lets me be masculine. This is pushback that I give any man that says, my lady won't let me be a man. I go, well, you're probably not a man then, because nobody lets you be a man. You're either a man or you're not.
Yeah. And let's think about this in a very basic way. This term that somebody came up with that got floated in some article in some journal that has infected culture and Western culture, called toxic masculinity. Think about what that means. What that's telling me is you are an infection. You are poisonous, Greg. That's what you're telling me, but you're not saying it. And people don't. We're only talking one layer down the rung of reason here, people. This takes 6 months meditating on the top of a mountain and starving yourself to nothing to figure this stuff out. And I'm not saying that to belittle anyone. These things that are injected into culture are injected by people who, quite frankly, I think only a tiny handful of them are actually truly brilliant, if that. The rest of them are just a bunch of idiots running around mimicking what they hear. And then they puke all that out to the masses. It's called television. It's called Hollywood. It's called the big carpet events. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And then everyone runs around just regurgitating this nonsense without looking at it and asking questions. What does this mean, and what effect is it going to have on us? Well, we're seeing the effect now.
Yeah.
Shit's coming unglued.
And here's something that I like to remind people of, because an idea, a movement, a fad, a trend can have billions and billions of people engaged in it. That does not make it right. Psychologists will tell you very, very clearly, even if 7 out of the 8 billion people that are on planet Earth believe in something, that doesn't guarantee that belief is right, true, or accurate.
Yep. And if something is popular, I don't really want to have much to do with it. Why? Because it's weak and it's easily digestible and it takes zero effort. That's why it's popular.
Yeah. We're looking at you, McDonald's.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Don't
Greg,
have the best burger, just have the best system to build a burger.
Yeah. And Greg, you've demonstrated once again why you're my favorite speaker on wisdom. Your input is so valuable, so insightful, and of course we have a good time whenever we talk.
You're the man. Thank you.
All right, brother. All right, so it looks like the ladies have chickened out. Buck, 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 buck. What a what a ridiculous thing to say and do. But you know, folks, sometimes I say something and I'm hearing it the same time that you are. And, you know, sometimes it just catches me off guard and makes me laugh. But yeah, that was very funny to me. So I think I've basically covered this topic. You know, I could actually speak way more about it, but, you know, as Greg would say, I believe I've given it sufficient treatment. And so I will sign off. So to Clubhouse, and I'm sure the replay is going to be weird because there's going to be these large gaps. But the Wisdom folks, you heard every precious and brilliant word that we said. So again, being that it's Friday, I will say enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. The folks on Wisdom, I am almost certain that I will be interacting with you all during the weekend because I enjoy it so much. But yeah, this is going to wrap up another installment of Chocolate Yoddah Live. And for those of you who are listening and want to see the beauty that is me, you can go to youtube.com/@thepersistentrumor and check it out. I've got something like 250 plus videos up there, and you can check out the repository of live videos and all the other videos that I've produced on there. For the folks at Wisdom, I'm probably, hopefully, less than a week away from finishing the talk that I did with Noble Ron. I think you're going to find it very, very enjoyable at the very least. So that's it. I think we can wrap it up here, folks. Peace, love, and granola. Talk to you soon.